Hey, it's Barb from Making at Home, and I am here today with Alisa in her Back to Eden garden. Just like we said in the first video, this is the second of the Back to Eden series, and we are going to look at her garden because it's a little more established than ours. She's had it for what, 3-4 years?
I think about 4 years.
And we're just going to kind of talk about how to get started with Back to Eden, how simple it is, how beneficial it is. Come along with us and we'll check out Alisa's beautiful garden and see what you can do with Back to Eden. why did you initially get started with Back to Eden? How did you find out about it?
Well, my mom discovered it first. She was browsing the internet and found this guy who had this crazy method of gardening. She told me about it, and I was like, no, that is completely contrary to all the laws of gardening. You can't put wood chips on your garden. You'll suck all the nitrogen out of your soil. It's a terrible idea.
And no tilling? What?
Yes. Well,
You're supposed to till.
Well, I'd already cut the tilling out. She showed me the Back to Eden video, and I was instantly sold. And it's just such an inspiring video. So I told her, okay, order the wood chips. We'll do it.
Now, I will say, even people who aren't Christian watch the documentary will still think it's an amazing movie, and Paul is really inspiring. You don't have to be Christian to understand or follow some of the reason behind why he's doing it, but it was super inspiring to me. It just helped me understand a little bit better about, our relationship with our planet and our relationship with God and our relationship with our food. And that was just like, oh my word, all of this in one it's what I'm, aspiring to try and change my life to be more healthy.
Exactly. Like you said, he does have a strong Christian message, but the core of it is that we're supposed to respect the creation and not be destroying it and bringing in all the poisons and the bad elements that a lot of is happening in this world.
Yeah, and I did mention that it mimics what nature does, and you don't have to be Christian to understand, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Nature knows what it's doing. It has trial and error, and there's fails and successes, and what succeeds grows. So
yeah, people get trapped in the mindset of thinking that if it's a bug, it's automatically bad. And I see so many posts on my social media with a picture of a bug, and they're like, what is this? How do I kill it?
Yeah.
And why is that the first reaction?
Yeah. To me, I think we did talk about that. Aaron and I mentioned that you will have bugs come into your garden no matter what. The first year, you're going to have some issues, but, you can still grow some really great produce. We had, amazing stuff happen. We had some fails too, but that's gardening. And then it just gets better year after year. And then once it's more established, if you have some kind of insect or weed issue or whatever, it will correct itself. So
exactly. My first year that I started it, my big problem was with pill bugs. I'd never had a problem with those before. I always thought they were completely harmless. All of a sudden they came in by the hundreds, it seemed like, and they were just swarming over some plants and just stripping them down to the ground. And I was shocked. I'd never seen pill bugs do that before.
Yeah, I thought they just rolled around and
and I had a moment where I was like, well, what did we just do? What did we just cause? This is going to be horrible. But I, did a little bit of hand picking, pulling them away from the plants to try to save the plants. But after that first year, I've never had a problem with them again. Yeah. Whatever that misbalance was, it corrected itself.
And I think that's the thing, is we have to just, like I said, even if you're not Christian, you just have faith in the system, and you have faith in the way everything works in harmony, and just try to, I think the real core of Back to Eden is, as little interference, human interference as possible. That's what it is just throw the, as my grandmother used to say, I just throw the seed out there and pray, it's like, that's how she grew things. So if somebody is just getting started out and they're trying to decide if they want to do Back to Eden over the regular, method of gardening, would you say it's harder or easier?
It's much easier. My garden, when I started out, my soil was almost pure clay. You dig down just a little bit and you just have these huge veins. I could have started a pottery business. But after I started doing the Back to Eden, you don't have to keep adding all the amendments, you don't have to keep digging, and you don't have as much of the moisture problem either that you have with clay. Because they say clay is not actually that bad for the plants because there's all kinds of minerals and good things in it. It's mainly because it's so heavy and it holds the water like crazy. And parts of my yard were already very wet to begin with.
Yeah.
And since I put the wood chips on, it's like the wet areas, they are not wet and soggy anymore. And the dry areas are staying a lot more moist. And I don't notice the clay anymore. It's like a miracle. It just went away.
Yeah, it's like the wood chips will keep any water in when it's dry, and they will dissipate the water if they need to. It works. It's great because we live, as I said, Alisa lives up on the hill above me, And so it's a little better for her. We live next to a big river and I'm in the flood zone. So I get, it's easier when the rains come, I get more waterlogged than you do.
Yeah.
So we're constantly dealing with that type of stuff, especially, it's Pacific Northwest, One of the things I wanted to mention is a lot of people when they're first getting started, they think, oh, I can put wood chips down. I'll just go to Lowe's and get, a pallet full of the bags of mulch.
The decorator chips.
Yeah, that catch on fire next to people's houses. And I like red and then a little black over here. And so no.
No, you want the chips in the different sizes, the way it comes in nature, because you're mimicking a forest floor. So just think, that you're out walking in the forest somewhere, what you would see. You would see lots of pine needles, lots of fallen leaves, lots of bits of wood in different sizes, and that's what you want. You want all the nutrients that are in that, because partly you're bringing earthworms up, and that's a huge part of what's improving your soil.
So about like the weeds and stuff. Like I said, with ours, we have some weeds, mostly buttercups, and then of course dandelions.
Oh yeah.
That Alisa has a whole area that's dandelions. And I'm sure, a lot of people who do gardening or going more towards a natural or organic method understand that dandelions aren't really weeds. And they're not invasive. And actually, before I even started doing Back to Eden, I found out that dandelions are good for your garden because they help your roots go so far down in that they're aerating the soil. So you'll see on the video that there are a lot of plants in Alisa's yard that many would consider to be invasive weeds, what have you, but if you've learned anything about herbalism or you know anything about organic gardening and stuff, they're actually beneficial. Like she has comfrey, she has, the dandelions, the bluebells.
Plantain.
Yeah, plantain. I hate, plantain is a really, really great herb to have. And unfortunately, it grows mostly in driveways. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to harvest from a driveway when I need plantain.
The thing with a lot of weeds like plantain is that they do grow in very poor soils because they're trying to improve the soil for you. So if you have like a lot of plantain in an area, it's probably because it is poor soil, like you would find in a driveway.
Exactly. One of the other really cool things we didn't quite cover, me and Erin, because we only have a couple fruit trees in our yard. We have the plum tree and then an apple tree. Alisa has, would you say, 30?
I kind of lost count, but I believe like 32. And these are regular fruit trees. This is not including bushes like currants and blueberries.
And it's not, they're not dwarf either, are they?
I usually buy semi-dwarf because they're stronger, they're healthier, they have a better root system than a dwarf does. But what changed that is I always thought I could never have fruit trees because,
everybody says, I have a small yard, I can't have an orchard.
We have one apple tree that we've had forever, that's huge. And that's it. I thought that's the best I could do. But then I read this book called Grow a Little Fruit Tree, and she talks about this method of training your trees to stay small, so they never get any bigger than you can reach standing on the ground.
That would be really short for me.
Yeah. You can trim them however short you need. But then you don't have to, harvest with ladders. When you're like pruning branches, you don't have to be up there, trying to wrangle with this huge big tree. And they still produce a lot of fruit, because, the average family does not need hundreds and hundreds of apples.
It's a waste.
They just lay on the ground.
I will link in the description box the book that she's talking about because everybody
it's
swears by it. Everybody loves it that's learning how to start a little mini orchard in their backyard.
Yeah, and you just, I think she said that, a tree that's about the size of her, she gets like 100, 150 apples on it once it's established, which is, it's about all the apples you need.
Yeah, and they keep for a really good, depending on the variety, they keep for a good long time.
And then, she also plants them in, pairs or trios so that it helps keep them smaller. And you've got a pollinator for the trees, and you've got more than one variety. You don't have just one big apple.
Alisa has all kinds of different animals here in the yard, which I think is amazing because me and Aaron, we have I think Aaron said we have 8 chickens. I haven't paid attention. He keeps adding while I'm not paying attention.
Slipping more chickens in.
Yeah, and he wanted to do it again this year, and I was like, can we just pause for a minute? But Alisa has all kinds of animals here on this small plot of land, and I think a lot of people would want to know how you would work small livestock into this as well. And, I think ultimately, this is kind of what most people who are doing back to eating or starting homesteading would aim for, is to have a supply of healthy food that they know where it came from, and then also to maybe integrate some different livestocks in when, you know, you can't have goats or you can't have, you know.
Exactly, yeah. In my city, I can't have anything with hooves. So, you know, that lets out goats, sheep, pigs, all those fun
All
things.
the yummy stuff. Sorry.
But what I do have is I have rabbits, I have quail, I have pigeons, and I have chickens, and I will be getting some ducks. So part of what I like to do is I like to figure out how to put everything in so they're all contributing to the overall whole, you know, effect of making things work better. I don't want my animals to be unhappy. I want them to have natural, healthy lives because they produce natural, healthy food for me. So one of the things I did is I actually put wood chips in the chicken yard. And chickens, if you have them, you know that if you put them in a confined yard, they will eat everything that's green down to the bare dirt, and they will just have lifeless, hard soil with poop.
Oh yeah.
So when I put the wood chips in, and I put it, you know, in pretty deep, like this deep, and they now have an area where they can dig in. That is what chickens want to do. They want to dig. They want to find worms. They want to find bugs. It keeps the soil soft. They find all kinds of food. It supplements their food, makes it more natural. And I can actually go in and I can dig out some of what they have prepared and add it to my gardens as compost. Because the dirt in there is actually fantastic.
Oh yeah. So like in the fall, when you have like a bunch of dead plants and stuff, do you put those into the...
Everything that isn't poisonous, you know, like foxglove, goes into one of the compost bins, and most of them are in the chicken yard. Chickens go in there, rummage around. I put the litter boxes from the rabbits in the compost. You know, just let it pile up all year, and then whenever I want compost, I just will take it out and put it in the garden. And rabbits are really cool for your garden because the compost, the rabbit poop, does not burn your plants like chickens. So you can just take it directly from the rabbit, throw it on the garden, and you already have animals. You can do that as well because you could put that down on your ground, you know, put a bunch of rabbit poop, a bunch of chicken poop, whatever you have, and then put your chips over on top of that.
Yeah, and then just let it, if you're ideally starting it in the fall, real
Like
smart
those
people
that
would
actually
do.
plan.
Yeah, the people who plan ahead, not us. Then ideally you would do that. The initial start of Back to Eden would be a layer of newspaper depending on your ground where you're planting, a layer of fertilizer, you know, the poo, and then a huge layer of wood chips, like a really big layer of wood chips because you want it will compress. Like we've already had to refill our beds.
Yes, that is one thing that I was shocked by. We brought in, I think it was like 14 yards of chips our first time. Put it all over the yard, thick layer. The next spring, it was almost all gone. Some of my garden areas that were, you know, like 6 inches deep when I first put it, it's like down to bare soil almost
But
now.
that's good.
Yes, your chips are disappearing like that. You know that you have hungry soil that needs it.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear is that as your garden gets more and more established, that it will eat the chips less and less, you know.
Yeah.
And eventually you won't have to shovel in quite so many loads.
Yeah. Because coming by loads of wood chips around here is like feast or famine. And that was the other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of people are like us when we got started, we were both, actually, I was asking if you had any, and she's like, we're waiting on Chip Drop. Chip Drop, you can sign up for Chip Drop. They have an app actually, and just let them know that you would like wood chips.
Call all the tree trimming places.
Yeah, call the tree.
And be persistent.
Yes. And the fact is that most of them are just trying to get rid of the chips, so they will. It's free. Usually all you have to do is haul them. And if you're lucky, you'll be like Aaron and hear somebody trimming the tree behind you, and you run around and ask them to dump the chips in your yard.
Yeah.
They might look at you like you're crazy, but don't worry about it.
Don't just call the tree trim companies once and get on their list.
Yeah.
Keep calling them. You know, if they say, oh, you know, we probably are going to have a job in your area next week, and then they don't show up, call them again.
Yeah, you have
And
to be
if you
persistent.
can get the owner's phone number, call him direct. That's what works for us.
Yeah. And then they start labeling you the crazy wood chip lady, you know? But that's okay.
They'll be like, we don't want her calling us anymore. Just give her chips.
Give her the wood chips. So yeah, I think that was the only hard part about starting Back to Eden was finding a good source for wood chips. Another thing we really, really want to emphasize that this is a no-tilling method, meaning even if you put the wood chips down, some people make the mistake, oh, should I till this into the soil? No, because the complaint was the nitrogen depletion. If you till the chips into the soil, yes, you will end up with nitrogen depletion. It's very, very similar to the lasagna method of gardening in a way. You're building. Always think of it as building. You're creating topsoil. And if you live in an area where that's, you know, think about it this way. How did the Dust Bowl start?
Exactly.
It was over-tilling of soil.
They over-tilled it and then they didn't cover it.
Yeah.
And so,
It blew away.
it just literally blew away.
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're creating, more of what we're used to seeing around here in the Pacific Northwest in the forests is this very deep, airy, mulchy, it's biomass,
Yeah.
basically.
Because nature wants to be covered.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to have those type of flower beds where you've just got bare dirt with a plant here and a plant there, nature is going to do her best to cover that, whether
Yeah.
it's with weeds or, you know.
So thanks, Alisa, for having us explaining all of the wonderful benefits of the Back to Eden method and how easy it is for anybody to get started doing this. Thank you all for being with us today, and we hope you subscribe. We put out videos every week on how to nurture a simpler, happier, healthier home. Want to move it forward?
Well, I was just going to think, is it solid? We're not suddenly going to flip over backwards, are we?
Ooh, whoa! The other day I was like, bra strap, delete, bra strap, delete. I'm like, dang it!
Fun part number 2.